Allstate wants to remind fans that mayhem is everywhere. Like when your fantasy league meets up at your house. Everything's great until the hot plate gets too hot for the tablecloth. Now your kitchen's up in smoke. And if you don't have the right home insurance coverage, the cost to fix this is anything but a fantasy. So switch to Allstate, save money, and get protected from mayhem like this. Not available in every state based on coverage selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Savings vary.
News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Presented by the Choctaw Casino and Resort in Durant. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Kerry, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the Choctaw Casino and Resort in Durant Unofficial 40 podcast, where the offseason is in full swing. We've had a national championship game. It has been decided Clemson's the champion, and now it is officially the offseason, and all eyes really on Alex Grinch as he tries to fill out his staff. We're going to talk a lot about that today. We've got recruiting. We had the All-American game over the weekend, the one in San Antonio, so we've got plenty to talk about from that as well. But welcome in the usual crew, Josh McQuistion, Eddie Radosevich, and Bob Przybylo. And Josh, I know you've been busy keeping the board updated with the news and notes, but obviously some interesting reporting coming out this morning that Brian Odom, the linebackers coach at Missouri, has turned down the job offer from OU. And just kind of let's start with your thoughts there. I know we have some things to say about this as well, but just, Josh, your first impressions there.
Yeah, this was the guy that I heard almost immediately was really at the top of Alex Grinch's list. Worked, for those that don't know, he worked with him at Washington State. Odom has kind of an interesting background. He spent a lot of time as a strength and conditioning guy, made the move over to linebackers a couple of years ago, has worked with his brother Barry at Missouri that, Barry's a very well-respected defensive mind in college football. Grinch spent a lot of time around Brian. So, there's some things that you connect and you kind of like. For those also that don't remember, Brian actually signed with Oklahoma out of high school, was just a great high school football player out of Ada. Really didn't ever do much. Kerry, you could speak to more of that than I could. You were a little more familiar at that point. But, it sounds just like this was a guy that Oklahoma really liked. Now, I know you've got some new information, so I'll kind of let you go with that. But it does sound like this guy was clearly the option, and Oklahoma is going to have to kind of figure out what they want to do going forward now that it seems like he's at least backed off a little bit.
I will start out with a bombshell of the podcast. I don't believe that it's over with Brian Odom.
Mm-hmm.
I think
interesting.
That regardless of the reports that came out today, I don't want to say anything was wrong or incorrect. I don't think that this is over yet. Now, we do know that OU has a candidate in today. This is Wednesday as we're recording the podcast. The linebackers coach from UCLA, and Josh, I know you posted about that early this morning.
Yes, sorry.
This is the part where you speak.
Yes, this is the part where I speak.
Roy Manning?
Roy Manning, yes, sorry. Got totally tongue-twisted there. Sorry, saw something and read it and got lost. Roy Manning is in Norman right now. I've been able to confirm that, talk to a few people. What I don't know is, what his role is going to be. I keep hearing talk that Oklahoma could do kind of what they did with the old staff and have an inside linebackers coach and an outside linebackers coach. And if it goes that way, then Manning makes sense, and it would still fit with what you're hearing, Kerry, that Brian Odom could still be part of things, and he would be the inside linebackers coach. So that's kind of going to be important to see how this plays out. I also don't know if this is a situation where OU is going to say, if this goes well, we're going to go after Manning. That's kind of still up in the air. But I get the impression, talking to people, that if Oklahoma wants to make that move, that's something Manning is going to very much be open to.
And that would be because Alex Grinch does run, kind of a 3-4. That's his base. That's what he's based out of, right?
Yeah, he's a 3-down guy. And there is a lot more difference between in a 3-4 what the outside linebackers and inside linebackers do than, like, say you have to make that decision between defensive tackles and defensive ends.
Well, let's face it, guys. I mean, like Eddie and Bob, we watch West Virginia and Tony Gibson run a 3-4. That ain't nothing like what Oklahoma ran as a 3-4. It's like Gibson was more about disguising pressure and bringing it from different angles and things like that. Like, they did so many things in their 3-4 that looked nothing like what OU did. So there's different ways to run it.
Yeah, they actually got stops against people.
It's, and again, there's a lot of people that listen to this pod that know football, even, that know it better than myself. That's pretty much what a 3-4 is designed to do. You're supposed to be coming at weird angles, creating pressures that are going to be difficult to block, making the offensive line shift, do all sorts of different stuff. And it's part of why we've had so many issues on the pod through the years with Oklahoma's defense. They seem like they ran a scheme that, like, they ran a personnel grouping that didn't fit what they wanted their scheme to be.
And when Alex Grinch talks about having an attacking defense, I think, yeah, you're looking at West Virginia's defense with better personnel. At least that's the goal.
And you would believe you have that personnel on campus. You just have to get them to perform at that level. When you look at the star ratings and things of that nature, the talent is there. You just have to mold them into that and try to, like, just erase everything that's happened the last 2 years, like do a Men in Black thing or something to get them to just forget what's happened.
Bob, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you saw a star make a tackle? Stars don't matter. They don't matter.
Except for Trevor Lawrence.
It's my Pat Jones impersonation.
Justin Ross.
Coach, if you haven't
Quinn Williams.
Let's realize I work with Pat Jones.
If you've ever gone 0-10-1, raise your hand.
Okay.
If you've ever gone an entire season without winning a football game as a coach, raise your hand.
He kept his job, though. That's the most impressive thing.
Well, that's what happens when you coach at a second-rate school like Oklahoma State.
Eddie, you've never coached your team to no wins.
True. I've also never lost a game as a head coach, too.
Undefeated.
So, kind of got that going for me.
That will be the next stage, is Sooner Scoop to have a youth league where Eddie is the head coach and probably commissioner.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
There will be gambling.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. I'd prefer that we do travel baseball. I think that's where the money's at. I don't know if you can make money off of a 8-year-old flag football team, but I'm sure there's some people that try.
You just want
Friday Night Tykes.
I'm sure we could sell admission to you coaching youth football, Eddie. I think that would probably go over very well.
Yeah, I think I'd be more comfortable doing baseball.
We could do like a Friday Night Tykes. We could do a web series.
Oh God, that'd be amazing.
But it's all about Eddie. We're trying
seriously,
to
like we the
trying
other
to
three of us
monetize,
would be coaching something, and it would just be like we wouldn't even know we were actually on the team. Like after the season was over, people would be like, "Oh, you coached there, Josh?" Yeah, nobody watched me. It was just on Eddie all the time.
Why didn't Ronald play in the game? Well, his mom's a whore. How about that? That's one place to
Actually,
start.
she's not enough of a whore, probably.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She doesn't wear anything skimpy.
She was stingy with it.
Yes, that's
And
where my mind was.
She has a little bit of a butterface, so we move on.
I don't think that you care about that at all if the rest of it's okay. It's my guess.
I don't know.
All right.
Gotta look at something in the mirror.
Moving on. Okay, so, God, I knew this was going to be a hard segment to get out of.
Get us back on track.
Okay, so the coaching news is out there.
Here's a question on the coaching stuff.
Okay.
Next Friday, would that be a acceptable day as far as getting everything done?
I think so.
You think they get everything done in the next week and a half, I guess is what I'm trying to say?
It depends on how many hires are they going to make. I mean, we haven't heard a lot about defensive backs. We haven't heard a lot about candidates that are out there.
Technically, they still have a defensive backs coach, correct?
He just doesn't follow the defensive coordinator on Twitter.
I mean, it's the offseason. I don't see that really being that big of a deal.
Like, one of Bob's, I feel like we should put this in, like, your contract. Like, one of Bob's job responsibilities is to follow everyone on Twitter because he is the master of that. Like, that is... I'll say it. That is one of Bob's strongest techniques is he lets us know when certain people follow other people.
Bob can connect the dots from like a guy, like it's like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Bob can make some crazy connections that usually actually end up valid. It's like his superpower as to Eddie knows what's happening on Twitter. Like Eddie can always know what's happening. Bob always knows who's following who.
And it actually led to some interesting kind of, let's talk about it. It led to kind of some interesting speculation where behind the scenes, we were trying to figure out if there was some kind of Alex Grinch Washington connection because there were some follows made there with their co-defensive coordinator. And then we were kind of like, and this is the stuff like people are like, hey, you never put anything on, you never work or put anything on the board. Like a lot of times we see stuff and stuff goes on, but it's not worth reporting because we don't know if there's any value there or anything to it. But like Alex Grinch followed the Kwiatkowski guy, the co-DC for Washington, and the Washington DC followed Alex Grinch, I think. Wasn't that it?
Yes.
So so immediately like, oh my God, is he trying to hire Kwiatkowski? It could have just been that they met at the coaching convention and had a really good conversation and said, hey, I'll follow you on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because there doesn't appear to be, and we were trying to like, oh, is he unhappy at Washington? Is it not working out? No, I think it was just that they met, they had a good conversation, and they followed each other.
Yeah, he might have talked to Peter and Jimmy Lake and followed both of them, and maybe Jimmy Lake hasn't gotten back social media.
Because Jimmy Lake probably doesn't, like most defensive coordinators,
because of the coaching
computers
convention. He doesn't care right now, and it's just hard to read into things. You try to connect the dots a little bit, but then you need something a lot more concrete after that to really come full circle.
But it's hard not to make something out of it. And for the record, I'm the one that was like, we all talked about it privately, and we're like, because I'd heard something from somewhere, and I said, okay, I want to run this just because it was so potentially big, but it looks like it's nothing. Like I haven't heard it mentioned really since the morning that we all kind of discovered all this. But what I will say was interesting is Grinch made this follow. He literally still has not even retweeted any of his hiring announcements. His most recent tweet is still when he was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Like, he's not active on Twitter. So the fact that he did this,
for all we know, Zac Smith was operating his Twitter at that time.
That was one of his jobs, along with ordering the dildos.
Yeah. That should be the first question to Alex Grinch. Did Zac Smith ever order you anything?
Should we address a Facebook message, Josh, about listening to our podcast with a 6-year-old?
We should.
Look,
let's get this out of the way.
Let's just say, look, we're not for everybody. We're not for 6-year-olds.
Definitely.
We would love to be for everybody, but look, we're a little freewheeling.
Well, it's America, and it's 2019.
Well, I have
you can't handle some cussing right now.
I have a better way of saying this, Eddie, if you'll let me.
How about you just don't listen? That's what.
That's not
say.
it.
Or
that's not the way to handle it.
You
no.
could.
You're never
you could
gonna
join us in 2019, be a grown up, and buy some headphones. Put those headphones on.
You don't
so
have,
your 6-year-old
you can get the AirPods.
I'm sure your 6-year-old probably doesn't understand the word anyways.
Well, and we do try. We did not bleep an F-bomb in the last podcast, which I wanted to get the podcast out, and we're having some equipment issues because we're doing all new stuff. We had a new computer, and we're still kind of working through that stuff. So anyway, what we're saying is we're going to have some coarse language. We're going to bleep out the F-bombs because I just believe we need to do something. But the shits and the dams and the hells, they're going to stay. I mean...
What about the goddams?
Well, my mom does not like those, but it is strange how much people are offended by the GD.
I think it's only here in the
in Oklahoma,
we call the Bible Belt.
Which, it's not the smartest thing for us to do that in the Bible Belt.
Yeah, but we also live in reality.
But you know what? I've also had pastors that have emailed me and said, hey, I'm a pastor, but I really enjoy your show.
And Justin Fields is committing to OU the day before Christmas.
I don't know if it was that pastor. Pastors have a lot of they are insiders as well.
Nobody thinks they're more important than a pastor.
Oh, come on.
I'll double
Not
down.
everyone is Joel Osteen, okay?
Prove it.
So what we're saying is, yes, this is not a podcast for children. in small children, if you're worried about them hearing coarse language or maybe subject matter that is a little mature, because we've already had some of that today.
As the
Or just be a better parent.
As the lone
I think they're trying
father,
to be good parents by complaining about the cussing in our podcast.
Nah, you're never going to get anywhere bitching and moaning. That's the kind of parent that probably calls his kid's school because his kid's getting beat up at recess.
I don't listen to the podcast when my 4-year-old's around. Like, it's a really simple fix. And I understand that that's not always convenient for everybody. I get all that.
Especially during the holidays. I mean,
yeah, like I get it. I understand. Like, believe me, I've had a boatload of my children over the last month. Like, this week felt like we had reached the finish line because every day,
kids do you have?
Wait
every
a
week
minute,
we're
Josh,
back 5
what?
days of school. But no, I love my kids. I do not mind the time when they go to school. I'm not going to pretend to be the dad that's like, I need them here all the time. No, I don't.
Oh,
no.
he means boatload like time, not like number.
Okay.
No, God, no,
You
not
said
number.
you said boatload of my kids.
I've had a boatload of my children. Like, I've had plenty of time with the two ladies. So we're good on that front. And Lainey's going to listen to this podcast someday. And I'm sorry for the therapy, honey. I really am. But it's, you know what? It's fine.
Can I also
like my girls, need my time.
Can I also add that
I don't know.
I
don't know
judge
where
you
this is
immediately.
going.
If you send a Facebook message to any type of company, you're immediately judged. And I already dislike you.
What about using Twitter to shame airlines for horrible service?
Awful.
I mean,
Awful.
they at least see it. I guess you could say the same thing about Facebook.
I'm saying I'm fine with that. Although I went to Office Max or Office Depot, whatever they are now. I think they're all one. I had to buy all these here you go, Eddie, uninterruptible power supplies.
Good job.
And like the prices were all screwed up on them. So I thought I was buying one that was like $199. It was like $229. Another one was supposed to be like $69. And it was like $79. And then then there was another one. The prices were all wrong. So I got up to the front and I put them down. And I was surprised that it was as much as it was. And I said, "Are these prices right?" And the guy didn't care at all. He was checked out. I mean, this was 8:00 at night, and I was mad about it. But then I went online and looked at the prices, and they just were marked wrong. I've worked in retail. I know how that works. You have a million things to do. Changing the price signs happens all the time. I wasn't going to complain to the company. I wasn't going to, like, this isn't Postmates that forgot your pie. I complain about that. I'm just not big on complaining. Shit happens.
I'm with you. Like, I'm one of those people that's like, I mean, because to me, if you mess something up badly enough that I want to complain about it, I'm just not going to give you my business again, and that'll be enough.
Now,
like,
if
that's fine.
I order a chicken fried steak from you, and you don't include the cream gravy, I lose my motherfucking mind. I call Postmates. I call the rest. I have literally gone to a restaurant to pick up the cream gravy on my own before. After having it delivered.
You shouldn't order chicken fried steak from Postmates. From anywhere on Postmates.
I know chicken fried steak's not good unless you get it like right as it's cooked.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
mistake on my
important
part.
question there. Are you guys a brown gravy or white gravy guys?
Oh, white gravy.
I don't see color, Josh.
Is this racist? Making an
Arkansas.
early appearance today.
What's up in Arkansas?
So anyway, okay, so tangent over. Kyler Murray, firestorm this morning from simply having a segment on the radio that everybody's going to talk about. Joe Masato did a good job at the Oklahoma getting in touch with Gil Brandt to get his thoughts on why he put that out there. He basically said, it's just an educated guess. It's nothing that Lincoln told me that was going to happen. But he was right on the Kliff Kingsbury, so now everybody's like, oh, there's one down.
And Gil did that, too. It wasn't everybody. It was also Gil.
Yeah, he
85.
also,
We should be thankful that he can operate a phone, to be honest. Be honest. We should be happy that he's
You think
operating.
he's doing that on a desktop or laptop or a phone?
It's a great question. That should be the question instead of is Kyler Murray coming back? How are you getting this information out to the public? And I have a lot of respect for Go Brand, obviously.
God, you really want to put all old people in a gas chamber, don't you?
They might have been onto something. I just it doesn't make any sense. Why do we
Those
keep?
were Jews, Eddie.
Oh.
I didn't say that.
Oh, Eddie.
What?
That's a home run, buddy.
I didn't. I'm not the ideology behind it. I'm just saying I'm talking about the old people. I'm not talking about Jews. I'm talking about the old Jews.
Okay, just
terrible.
Okay, here is my much.
regardless if they were
on
Jewish, if they were old, they could have been Chinese.
I'm just talking about the old people.
At a
Greek
certain
Orthodox.
age that we should just deny medical care. That's my stance on the old.
Yes, I've been saying that for years.
Because
Natural
it's a
death.
bleed on us, and you know what? If you can make it, you can make it. Great. And if not, you know what? That's.
Guess what?
Unless I know you, or unless you're part of my family.
We are not worried at all about the older demographic.
No, I mean they
This is
can't
a
even. They
podcast.
can't figure out how to download the podcast. Little. I mean, like Sparks is really screwed right now. We're talking about him right behind his back.
See, Eddie's not a hard liner. I'm a hard liner. I don't have any addendums to my
Sparks
situation.
is still trying to figure out how to watch the podcast, Eddie.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He can't get it to play on the TV.
I mean, he's single-handedly responsible for doing away with the swoosh in the opening of the Scoop HD videos.
He is,
Because it
isn't
was
he?
said it was too loud. His wife could hear it in the other room.
When he would wake her up. Yeah.
Sir, turn your volume down.
We did that for you though, Sparks.
I mean, so yeah, say I haven't done anything
Yeah.
for the elderly demographic. Point A right there. Exactly. It will be
Kyler Murray, the discussion, it blew
doesn't-
up on the board this morning
Right.
just because I simply said it would surprise the coaches if he came back.
it doesn't make sense why he would come back. And that's something that we talked about last
Here's
week.
the three options as I see them. You have option number 1, declare for the NFL draft, and then do your deal with the A's however you need to do it. Give back money. I just don't think it's possible for him to be a quarterback in the NFL and play professional baseball. I don't think that's a possibility.
Not a quarterback.
Option number 2, don't declare for the NFL draft. Don't come back and play college football. Go play professional baseball. Give it a couple of years. See how you progress. If it's not going the right way or you're not making progress, you don't see any light at the end of the tunnel, then put your name into the NFL draft. 2 years from now. They're still going to be interested because they're not exactly producing 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks a year in that league.
Well, and it's happened before. I mean, look at Brandon Weeden. It was a little different strategy as far as which way he went, but I always think that if you want to do that, baseball, you got to take your chance at baseball first.
Who is our?
'cause that's the longest road to the show.
Josh, who was our first Rivals keynote speaker? Drew Henson. Played for the Cowboys.
I think so.
He went and played. He played for
Yeah.
Michigan. Went
Yeah.
and played pro baseball,
The Yankees, right?
and then with the Yankees. Then he came back and tried to play with the Cowboys, and he was terrible. Was it Drew Henson? Was that his name?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the kid from Michigan. Are you there, Josh?
I'm here.
Well, that was the worst keynote speaker in the history of Rivals Publishers Conventions. I figured you'd remember that one.
That was awful. Sorry, no, my headphones got weird for a second. I don't know what that was. I could kind of hear you guys, and then I had to fix it myself. So that's where I went wrong.
It's always an excuse.
Always.
Josh
Always. And
Josh
it's
is
never me.
one step ahead of Sparks when it comes to technology.
This is,
Wow.
This is myth. This is myth. I don't know what Kerry knows, so that means I'm Cro-Magnon man. Bull.
They're headphones, Josh. They've been around since like at least the 50s.
No,
60s.
the cord came unplugged. Like, it's not like any big deal. Like, it was easily fixable. I just didn't know it was happening until it happened.
We have literally never had a cord come out during a podcast here.
Yeah, you have a big studio setup. I mean, we don't want to go behind the curtain and, that I'm sitting. This is all running through my little MacBook Pro that's my backup because my other one has an iKey that's gone rogue.
I don't even know what that is. So, option number 3 for Kyler Murray.
We're doing all this while the government shut down. I mean, come on.
I know. Option number 3, Kyler Murray goes to play professional baseball. Then in August, he comes back and completes his final year as a college player, and that's the option that allows him. Which can we all? I mean, we don't know Kyler as much as we've gotten to know other quarterbacks. He's been here for a year. He's been off limits the entire time, except for last year. We kind of know his personality now a little bit more. But do you think, have we gotten to know him enough where we all would agree that football is definitely his first love?
I think so.
Yeah. Feels like it for sure.
Just the way that he talks about, and I was around him during baseball season. Just the way that he talks about it, I feel like it's pretty obvious.
It's really responsible for his entire identity.
Well, and just
too.
look at that, and then look at what he's done over the last year. You tell me which sport he enjoys more. I think that there is
he won the goddamn Heisman Trophy.
Yeah,
like
he came back to play.
Even if he
didn't even have to come back to play football last year.
Even if he had won the Golden Spikes Award, he would still be known as the Heisman Trophy winner over the Golden Spikes winner.
Yeah, probably so.
It would be amazing that the same person won both those awards, but
it'd be a first time ever. That is an interesting little deal there, I think. That third option.
So for that third option, when would he go with the A's? When would he officially leave?
Spring training, I think, is February 21st is their first scrimmage.
Yeah, you show up for spring training and then go through spring training, play a season, and
which is what, like starting in 2 weeks, spring training? Or is it right before? Will it be the 1st of February? I don't know when pitchers and catchers report.
Yeah, I'd say the end of February.
Well, if it's February 21st is the first games, then it's probably early February. 2 weeks out or something like that. So anyway, yeah, he'd start in February, go all the way till August.
Would you be comfortable with him missing so much time?
Yeah. I'd give a what he does. He could show up on August 28th for all I care.
I don't think Lincoln would care. I mean, what's his option?
Well, I mean, he won the Heisman. He was the best college football player in America last year.
He'd pick it up really fast.
He doesn't need to sit around and practice with the team.
He'd be like, I got CeeDee Lamb. I got Grant Calcaterra. Mixing Mark Andrews and Grant Calcaterra now. And then I got these freshmen that are really good. I'll just throw the ball up to Jadon Haselwood and see what happens.
Yeah, they don't have it listed, but I would imagine it's middle of February when pitchers and catchers report.
So, option number 3 is out there. I know, Josh, you feel like right now that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's my impression. Just talking to some people, like when that stuff first came out from Gil Brandt, I talked to a few people, and there was just this, like it wasn't even really considered or discussed. It was like, yeah, it's kind of known. Like he's going to go. He's going to – because, I mean, what is the advantage for him to come back to Oklahoma? The fact that he wants to do both? I feel like Kyler's a practical enough kid to recognize the problems with that. Like playing baseball and playing quarterback in the NFL, I don't know how you do that. You can play center field and, wide receiver, but I don't think you can do quarterback with the time and all the stuff you need to do that. I don't know. I don't think that's a thing that's possible. And I think you guys are dead right. I think football is he sacrificed everything, including possibly $5 million to play baseball or to play football. Like he loves football. And I think he's clearly a kid that likes to prove everyone wrong. And that's his next chance. I mean, what more can he do at Oklahoma that he hasn't done?
And like you guys have said, nothing surprises you about baseball and how awful they are at promoting players and PR and all that stuff. But, I just can't stop thinking what a huge mistake it was for the A's not to try and build a relationship with Kyler over this last year. I mean, he said, he's like, they just kind of left me alone, let me do my own thing. Like, if I'm treating him like a college football coach would if he were in high school. I'm like recruiting him still. Like, yeah, I know we paid you a bunch of money, but dude, we want to make you like us. We want to make you want to come and start your baseball career and leave this stuff behind. They didn't do any of that.
It was always peculiar that they ended up taking him as high as they did, in my opinion. I mean, I think Kyler's a really good baseball player, but...
Because I don't think they ever thought that this was possible, that he'd go through a season and win the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, it's almost like they call it... We've talked about it before. It's almost like they tried to call his bluff that he wasn't a really good football player.
Yeah. Which, Josh, you
Maybe
say...
that's why the A's are such a shitty organization.
You say you just can't do that. I bet you in Kyler's mind, he's never listened to anybody that's told him he can't do something.
You're right. That's fair. That's fair. I guess it's hard for me to envision, I guess would be the nicest way to say it. I don't know how you do if he can, I'll own that I'm wrong. But I don't see how you do that. Especially at the level that Kyler Murray doesn't want to be second string or be a decent NFL quarterback. That dude doesn't know anything but being the best.
Yeah.
And for him to do that, I think Kyler Murray's immensely talented. For him to go in and be like, I can put in half as much time as Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees or any other elite quarterback and be just as good, I can't get there.
It'll help if, once the 14th comes and goes.
Which is rapidly approaching. I mean, that's
Monday.
Monday.
Yep.
So,
because if he doesn't enter his name into the draft, then you got something to talk about, which I think we talked about this last week.
well, I mean, you say that, but he wouldn't have to if he wanted to take that third option. Of course, he wouldn't.
Well, your draft rights, I think it's changed. Like, even if you entered the draft, if you enter the draft, he's not coming back to OU. We know that.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
one thing
Right.
that
Yeah.
it solidifies. But he doesn't have to go play for the team that drafts him if he doesn't want to. But I don't know if his rights ever expire now, where it used to. So I think whoever drafts him gets him. Because remember, the NFL, or is it baseball? No, it's baseball that switched where if a kid doesn't sign with you, you lose that money.
Right.
But football's not that way.
Right. But it's kind of interesting in in Murray's case, the A's won't lose that money because he'll have to pay it back if he weren't to play baseball.
But it'll hit him on their salary cap.
Okay. Yeah, that is true, I guess. But they would still technically have that money, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it'd be like it kind of X's each other out.
Yeah. But it just hurts their ability to get like a middle reliever or something.
Right. It'd be unlike a situation if you didn't sign your number 9 pick and then he went back in the draft next year and you were shit out of luck.
Yeah.
Kind of weird. But there is nothing normal about Kyler Murray,
But if he wants to have a baseball career, he needs to do it now, because now that he's signed and he's gotten money, he can't come back and play college baseball next year.
Yeah. I mean,
he'd be sitting out a year of not playing baseball.
And that's why I kind of feel like he would, I don't know. I'll put it this way. I'd be shocked if he's not in Mesa, Arizona come March 1st.
I would too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that still leaves the door open that he could play football.
Not to mention the pressure of his uncle being part of Scott Boris's agency. Like, you really screw over a family member. I don't know that you want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I don't know. There's part of me that feels like they wouldn't want to do that, but I think there's another part of me that thinks that I think Scott Boras is smart enough to know he could ride this thing out and make a lot of money at some point. Like, Kyler's not, if baseball is still in his plans at some point, Boras could run this thing out even if he wanted to come back and play football next year. Like, I think that Kyler Murray's smart enough to, like, I had this floated out at me. What if he did that? He played baseball, went and came back, played football.
In college,
and then somehow got out of his, well, I don't know if
I guess
he could get out of his contract.
You could prorate your bonus for how much you played.
I guess what I'm trying to say is $5 million isn't that much money to these guys. And I know that's like just stupid to say, but I honestly don't feel like, I feel like it's not that much money to him to be turning down or to be giving back.
I mean, I guess because he's got
gonna make
potential earnings
because he's gonna make that
elsewhere.
exponentially somewhere else.
Yeah,
like money isn't gonna be an option for Kyler Murray.
Either that or he's waiting. Either that or it's clear he's gonna go NFL, and it's taking this long because he's working on an endorsement deal and he wants to be able to announce it all at the same time.
Very well could be, and you'd be stupid if you're Adidas or Nike or Jordan Brand or whoever. I mean, he's I don't want to say he's a once-in-a-generation guy, but he's the only guy that could literally have the possibility of doing both.
Like, even here's something I hadn't thought of. Even if he declares for the NFL, gets drafted, and just stays with baseball, that's still going to get him a really good endorsement deal. Because if it's Nike, they're going to be able to be like, this is the new Bo Jackson.
Unlike a lot of baseball players out there, he's extremely marketable.
Yeah.
And we've seen that here just within the past couple months with the collar nose stuff.
He's kind of like Steph Curry in the fact that kids can relate to him because he's not 6'7".
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's a big selling point for him. If you're going out there and running his name to all these marketing companies or ad companies, I mean, yeah, he goes against the grain of everything that we know about a player, and especially even a guy like Bo Jackson, who was just a genetic freak.
Now, Kyler could beat Steph Curry to within an inch of his life. He's not scrawny.
No. Especially if he had a baseball bat.
That basketball would do him no good.
Yeah.
Or those Under Armour kicks. So, I mean, how much more can we break down Kyler Murray? I don't think anymore.
We're at the mercy of him making an announcement, basically. And for if anybody's out there acting like they have an inside source, basically.
Did we figure out that he didn't have a brother? Like somebody put a rumor out there. Oh, his brother said.
Yeah, some guy DM'd me and said that his brother told me that he's come back. Sir, I don't think he has a brother.
I looked it up on Wikipedia, everything. I couldn't find that he had a brother.
Well, I've literally never heard the guy talk about it.
He's never talked about his brother.
I would think that at some point it would
brother,
come up.
okay? It's just an estranged brother.
Maybe so. Kevin made him throw 100 strikes before dinner.
We've had fake brothers. We've had pastors. We've had another pastor.
We are in social media hell is what we're in.
Josh,
without question.
I mean, Josh, there's no question. There has never been a time in the history of sports when people throw so much shit out there at one time. It's never been like this.
Because it's such a firestorm. Like Joe Nobody can throw something out there, and if the right person sees it, it gets a couple retweets. Well, then it shows up in front of somebody else. Well, then and it just grows and grows and grows. And then this thing that could have come from anywhere becomes like not even like a rumor. It's kind of like, oh, there's a lot of smoke. Something's happening here. When you don't know
it's because everyone's repeating
from.
the same thing on every message, every rival site, every 24/7 site, every fan site, every donor site.
And we've seen here over the last couple of months, as far as message boards and what we say on the radio and things like that, people have very selective hearing on what they want to hear and what kind of information they want to decipher to carry with them, if that makes sense. It's like people only want to believe what they want to believe, and then when they believe it, they're steadfast on this idea that it's kind of like the Pete Golding stuff. It's like Pete Golding, if on November 29th or in between November 28th and December 6th, I'm just throwing those dates out there as examples. It's like if you would have polled our board, 100%, Pete Golding was the next defense coordinator at Oklahoma. Because why? Because it was a message board rumor.
There's too much smoke.
Because there was an internet rumor, and people wanted to believe that. They wanted to buy into this idea.
And they wanted it to be someone from Alabama.
It's kind of like the Justin Fields thing. I mean, there's been a lot of really good examples here over the last month and a half as far as this Kyler deal is even more prevalent now. Is like people want to believe that he's coming back, and they just buy into this idea that bigger things are happening, when in reality it's like, I don't know if it's working out like that.
By the way, Josh, I don't know if you heard this along the way. We haven't discussed every note that we've gotten in during this coaching search. I was told today Alex Grinch was a done deal New Year's Day.
Really?
And
was there any rationale for why it took a while to release?
Well, Washington State had to finish theirs, or Ohio State had to finish their season.
Well, they
would have on New Year's Day.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was finished on New Year's Day, and then if it got out, at least it would have been after the game.
Oh, okay. But I mean, like, why was there the delay and even? I mean, because like it broke
days,
long before they announced it.
Well, that's one of those things. Like you've got to eventually then tell the regions, and then it's going to start getting out there.
Sure. That's the side of this stuff that always confuses me. I don't understand the mechanics very well.
Can I circle back on something as far as the coaching hires? Mm-hmm. Is Alex Grinch is he the guy pulling the strings on everything here? Or is him and Riley working in conjunction with each other? How would you?
From what Josh, feel free to jump in. From what I've been told, I think people are trying to figure that out. Like, because it's really gonna say a lot depending on what happens. Like, if Ruffin and Tibbs are back in charge of the defensive line. Whatever happens to the DB thing, have we talked about that much?
No, we haven't. I was just thinking we're going to go into that.
So, look, I'm not, oh God, I feel like we need to pause the podcast. I need to go to the board and put this stuff out before people freak out. Like, you won't tell some board. You guys know.
They don't know what time it is. We'll just say that we recorded this at 2:30. How about that?
You guys walked in here. I was on a phone call. I was talking to somebody, a pretty good source, and I was told that it's not a done deal that Kerry Cooks is out.
Which do you want me to tell you what I said?
Everyone's response was pretty much universal. Which was what, Eddie?
What the f***? Why? That's what I said.
We all thought the same thing.
It doesn't make sense to me. It honestly doesn't make sense to me. How can you justify? I mean, and
there's so much
this
evidence.
Sounds so bad that I'm shitting on him like this, but like, there's no evidence that gives me belief to think that they can get this thing turned around with him.
I don't believe it because Alex Grinch has a defensive backfield background. I mean, you would think if there's one position coach he's going to hire that is just like it doesn't even have to be a home run, but it's going to make a lot of sense. It would be a DB coach.
I come at it from the other way. So if you assume this, now Alex Grinch, like you said, he was safeties coach and co-DC at Ohio State. He's got a defensive background. Even if he's going to say, I'm just going to stick with the safeties at Oklahoma, okay, he's got to find a corners coach. So Kerry Cooks is going to go from co-DC and secondaries coach and secondary coach to just corners. I don't think Cooks does that. I don't think he makes that move. And I don't know how Grinch would feel good about selling people on, okay, he's going to be my corners coach and my co-DC based on what happened last year, to forget that basically he would take Mike's job, whoever the linebackers coach is would take Kish's job, and everything else on that defense is going to stay the same. I don't know. I don't know how you make that case, and I don't know how you'd feel good about that as a DC, knowing how bad that defense was last year and has been for several years. Plus, and I mentioned this to you guys when we talked about it a little bit before the pod, that doesn't look great from an optics perspective. It looks like you're laying all of these defensive problems on Tim Kish and Mike Stoops, because those are the only two guys that are going to go. So we fixed everything because Tim and Mike left.
Well, and not to mention, you're talking about a secondary that literally
gets worse.
What's the one thing that we talked about even after the Texas game was the fact that this defense and this program, basically, on the defensive side of the ball, particularly at defensive back, the longer you stay in it, the worse you get. Whose fault is that?
Jordan, guys, I think everybody forgets, as a sophomore, Jordan Thomas was talked about as like a first-round pick someday. And now I think he's like a backup in the CFL.
Is it as simple as just waiting for Kerry Cooks to have a landing spot so you don't have to say he was fired?
That's what it feels like to me. That's what makes sense.
I mean, it is weird that nobody's been announced. I mean, Tim Kish announced his retirement, and that's the only thing it's weird. I mean, just go ahead and cut the cord, do it.
I don't know. Obviously this is why I'm not a good person, but if you're going to make a move, why are you, well, it's one of the many. If you're going to make a move, why do you just sit around on your hands and make it look like everything's okay when in reality, like if he takes it's like I told you guys before the pod started, if Kerry Cooks takes another job at wherever, North Texas
has been floated.
or wherever, any school not above Oklahoma in the ranks of college football, it's pretty obvious what happened. And he ain't getting hired at Bama or Clemson. I'll tell you that right now.
It'll be interesting. Like I said, that was the one position I was just like, well, we're not really getting any feedback on what's going on, but I think we all trust him to make a great hire there because that's what he knows. Well,
yeah. I mean, you look at what he did with being able to even get Alex Grinch here to Norman. There's a lot of reasons, obvious reasons out there too, to think that Lincoln Riley knows what he's doing with these hires and with the, I guess, kind of the restructuring of the defensive side of the football for Oklahoma. But it's interesting. I mean, I feel like as much good as he's done and as much credit as he's gained with the fan base, bringing back somebody like Kerry Cooks not necessarily would hurt the opinion of people out there, but I don't know, maybe just go against the grain of all the good that he just did. And I know that sounds really shitty, but let's be honest, they haven't been good in a long time.
Again, I'm sorry, go ahead, Josh.
It's just, and like I said, I don't know that it's fair that we lay all of it at Kerry Cooks' feet because, there's some of this stuff that I know they're not teaching these kids. Like some of the things you're seeing them do, there's no way that any DB coach in the history of man has taught these things. But at the same time, it's kind of like when Mike left and he had that interview, I think, with Dusty, where he was like, he wasn't able to connect with the kids like he used to. And I don't know that that's the problem with Kerry, but there's clearly some kind of disconnect. There's some message that's not getting through for some reason or another. And I don't know if that's Kerry's fault. I don't know if that's the kids' fault. But the bottom line is it's not working. And at that point, I feel like you have to rethink things.
All right, time will tell, kind of like everything. We're going to keep tracking it, Sooner Scoop. That's just kind of one of the things that's floating around today. It could change quickly in 24 hours. We could find out after they take care of the linebacker job that DB, we start hearing some names coming in and interviewing for that.
We are in the middle of the craziest coaching carousel that I can ever remember as far as, a college head coach got fired from his job and is now a head coach in the NFL. Nothing is off the table.
And people will say, "Oh, that's crazy." There's a connection to Oklahoma because Oklahoma is looking at Zac Spavital, who is now Texas State's defensive coordinator. He was formerly the co-DC and linebackers coach at Texas Tech. Now that Kliff Kingsbury has taken that job, is he in play to become the Arizona Cardinals' next linebackers coach? There is so much
Well, Bruce Feldman has just put out a tweet. Jake Spavital, who was Kliff's offensive coordinator, may be in line for a job with the Cardinals too. So if that happens, then all of a sudden Texas State has to go out and find a new head coach. All of a sudden,
that'd be wild. That'd be so
wild. And then
wild.
Zac Spavital is floating around out there, either without a job or maybe a candidate at Oklahoma.
Again,
what if Zach then became the head coach at Texas State? Jake had a month-long reign.
We don't have enough money to change the last name on the on the parking spot outside. We're gonna promote you to head coach. It is wild.
Though. Everything. This is cost effective.
Hey, can I sidebar real quick as well?
Well, before you do that, let me remind you, you are listening to the Choctaw Casino and Resort in Durant Unofficial 40 podcast. Want to remind you guys, a lot of great entertainment coming up over in Durant, a great theater, one of the best in the state to see a concert. Went over there. Even though I'm not a I'm not that old of a classic rock guy. It was a great concert. Really enjoyed it. Creedence Clearwater Revisited was there too. But they got the Scorpions coming up in January. Turnpike Troubadours coming up in February. Chris Stapleton has 2 shows there coming up. They're sold out, but check SeatGeek. You can get tickets through them. Also, Tesla and Whitesnake coming up later on in the spring, too. So it's a great weekend. Go check it out. Great hotel. You can stay, make it a weekend, kind of elevate your weekend during the off-season, and go check out the Choctaw Casino and Resort in Durant. And, Eddie, you are more than welcome to go to your sidebar now.
Thank you, Kerry.
As long as it's
I just wanted very clean,
great sponsor.
No, this is very clean. I just wanted to while we were talking about Kliff Kingsbury, I wanted to congratulate Kliff Kingsbury and one of my personal Twitter friends. She follows me on Twitter, Holly Saunders, for their relationship that has now gone public.
What?
Yep.
She's not. I thought she was married to Eric Casillas.
Oh no, they got divorced a long time ago.
Really?
That was before she followed me on Twitter, because she follows me on Twitter. But me and Holly Saunders and Kliff, hopefully we'll get together in the desert sometime. And,
could be this weekend.
See each other. It could be this weekend. I'm headed out this weekend.
Did you tell Holly that you're coming?
No, I need to put it out there.
I don't think there's any question from anybody in this pod. Holly Saunders, a much bigger win for him than the Arizona Cardinals job.
Yeah, you would think that on paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just kind of debatable with her decision making and having been married to Eric Casillas, who's just a scumbag to begin with. So
that was a weird deal.
Okay.
He must have a huge hog.
I didn't realize this was an on the paper kind of evaluation, but I like that.
I like to put it all out on paper before we make any decisions.
Sure. You're a pros and cons kind of guy. Yeah, I got you.
Like cans, yes, for Holly Saunders.
Plus, millions of dollars don't come out of vaginas.
That's true, too.
I mean...
how about this?
Well, do we think she's made all her money for talent? I mean,
except for, porn stars, maybe.
Did you see the Bunky Perkins tweet? One of the best tweets of the year, I thought, so far to date. And I know we're early. We're only 9 days into 2019. But he said yesterday, Bunky Perkins, great follow on Twitter, by the way. Let me find it. Getting kicked out of college, trying your luck in L.A., but ending up in Scottsdale is the origin story of most porn stars, ... and Kliff Kingsbury.
That is
really
that was
good. Pretty good.
Yeah. That is very good. Well,
back to you, Kerry.
That's good for Kliff, because there are a lot of co-eds in Tucson that could...
I'm telling you, I tried to pitch it yesterday to HBO. They need to bring Hard Knocks back to the Cardinals and then also add in a Real Sex episode as well. Could go back-to-back with Kliff in the desert.
Well, the Bunny Ranch guy died.
Dennis Hoff.
Yeah.
He was found by Ron Jeremy.
Yeah, Ron Jeremy found his body.
I mean, we currently have one of the greatest reality shows just out there. I mean, you could have Kliff in the desert in Scottsdale running through MILFs, and then you have Joey Freshwater, a.k.a. Lane Kiffin, in Boca Raton doesn't get any
Think
better.
of all the divorcees in Boca Raton.
Doesn't get any better.
Was there anything crazier than just standing there outside of Florida Atlantic's practice facility after multi-million-dollar jet after multi-million-dollar jet landed like it was like rush hour?
Yeah, that was crazy. They were just
backed up one after another.
And not anything for was early in the week, too. It wasn't like people were coming in for the game or anything.
It was a Monday or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, how much damn money is in Florida?
I would
It's
say
insane.
in that little Fort Lauderdale area that we stayed in, probably a lot. I mean, some of those houses, Bob, you saw them on the float, the trip over the media party. Some of those houses on the water are just incredible.
You know what goes great with a house on the water? Coop Ale Works.
Oh, that's true.
CoopAleWorks.com. Go check them out. Another great sponsor of the podcast. 9 years they've been brewing local beers here in Oklahoma City. 7 great year-round beers. The F5 IPA. If you go to their website, CoopAleWorks.com, and you're outside of the Oklahoma City area, say in Dallas, and you want to find a bar or a store where you can pick up your Coop Ale Works, just go to the website. They've got a locator for you to show you the nearest places where you can pick up your Coop Ale Works, and make sure you get the Horny Toad Blonde. That's a starter beer for me, because if you like domestic beers like a good Budweiser, Coors, that really gives you an idea of what Coop Ale Works is all about and how good their beers can be. So great sponsor of the pod. We always love it that people tweet us as they're getting ready to enjoy their game, their Thunder game, whatever, with their Coop Ale Works, and we always try and retweet those. So thanks for everybody for doing that, and thanks to Coop Ale Works for being a great sponsor of the show. Okay, so recruiting, we've got official visits coming back. I know, Josh, you were down at the All-American game. Jadon Haselwood, I'm sure you had to be relieved that finally was put to bed.
Yeah, it was funny walking away from the little the table where he announces it on national TV. I was walking away and I walked past our Georgia guy Jake Royce, and I said something like, "I'm glad that's over," and he goes, "Me more than you, dude." And like that's the way that thing felt. Like, just I want to be done with this story. Like, I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of playing stupid about it for 3 weeks. Like, I don't want to be part of it anymore. So,
I believe that was last Saturday.
That was 2 years in a row. You had to do the same thing with Buki last year.
Oh, well.
You had a nice little run at the Army or the All-American game here, as far as announcements with Buki and Mixon and.
By the way, how was the crowd there without all the Army personnel?
It was smaller, but it was still way better than what I thought. I bet you there was 15,000 there, something like that. I mean, it wasn't bad.
It didn't look empty on TV, but they don't show, the whole.
Oh, they make yeah. I mean, it's not like Under Armour. Under Armour is like a ghost town. Like, I'm always like. I feel like there's people in the stands, like they're just sitting there like flicking popcorn into their mouth because there's no one around them to give a shit. Like there's never anybody there. So, no, but yeah, the Haselwood story, it was the first time he really talked with me. It was my third interview with him, and he really was very guarded and didn't say much in the first two. But that one, I probably cut it shorter than I should have because he was very he was actually answering questions and talking about things and seemed excited. And, that was kind of fun to kind of see maybe what he's actually like. But I thought the funniest thing of the whole week was Spencer Rattler. Like, everybody else is like kind of winking and nodding about Jadon Haselwood. Spencer Rattler would not commit to anything.
He knows that he knows that he needs some trust there if he's going to be throwing the football to him.
Yeah, it was very much like, we'll see what happens. I don't know anything about anything. I wouldn't ever know anything. Never. I would have no interest in who the receivers are at this university. I don't care. And you're just like, it's too much. Like you're overcorrecting here, Spencer. Just calm and play it cool, man.
The thing about Haselwood's weekend, and I think the same for Theo Weiss in Orlando, is those were 2 5-stars, and those were 2 guys that basically just did whatever they wanted to do in those games, even against the best in the country.
I hope everybody's seen the video that we got of Haselwood's touchdown from the field. That was one of the funner videos I've shot. And I don't know if you could see it all on television. Like, I don't know if they kept with it the whole time. But, like, he went and he grabbed the ball and he tried to throw it up into the stands. But thankfully he's a receiver and it didn't get all the way to the stands. So that was kind of a whole thing. But no, I mean, like, that was, like I said, you get to see these guys, and he's always been so reserved. It was fun to see him kind of, like, cut loose and just be a high school kid and kind of do what he does. But you're right. I mean, Theo and Haselwood, I don't think anybody could come out of those 2 games not arguing that they're the 2 best receivers in the country.
And Josh, the final Rivals ranking should come out next week, if I believe that's right. You see any significant changes after these 2 All-Star games?
No, I mean, you'll see some slight moving around, I think. I think there's still some people that have some question on Austin Stogner. I think you might see him dip a little bit. I don't want people to misunderstand. He didn't have a bad week. No one's like, we got to totally change our stance on him. I just think you might see him dip a little bit. EJ and Doma Ogar, I liked what I saw through the week of EJ. But at the same time, it's one of those deals where you get into these national events, and you guys, you know how this is. You're like, oh, man, that's a big kid. And then he gets amongst other big kids, and you're like, he's not as big as I thought he was. And that's EJ. Like, he's 6'2 and a half, 6'3. I mean, 300 pounds. He is a large human being by any measurement on the planet. But when he's amongst other big people, he just doesn't look as big. And so I think, and I've talked about it before, I think he'll start at center. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But like I said, I think that's something to kind of keep an eye on.
And he's definitely a guy that's going to benefit from strength and conditioning in college.
Oh yeah,
he won't feel like he benefits at first because he's going to be throwing up a lot. But
Yeah.
It was pretty clear he was not in great football shape.
So, yeah, I mean, like, I don't see any big movers up, but it's largely because the two guys that played incredible games, there's not much room for them to go anywhere. I mean, 3 and 4, like, could they jump to 1 and 2? Maybe. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I wouldn't have a receiver that high, but, you know, I can't know. The one guy I would say maybe quietly, because his team got beaten so badly that people are forgetting, really had some really impressive moments with Spencer Rattler. That guy made some throws that, like, being on the field and watching it, it was kind of just holy shit. Like, that guy's really, really good.
Well, it was nice that the coaching staff for the white team kind of pulled their heads out and realized that using a different quarterback every series wasn't going to work.
Was that before or after we put him on the hot seat?
That was after.
That's after.
They must have been reading our Twitter.
Must have been.
I know some folks on that staff. Haven't heard any feedback yet. I haven't found out that I'm no longer welcome at their high school campus anymore. But yeah, there were some things all through the week from the West that were really strange. Like, I know, like, the Monday practice, I'm talking to the guys, and they're like, yeah, we don't really know what we did yesterday. It was just kind of like, it was kind of install, but really we just stood around a lot. Like, and you're like, oh, that's good. You've only got 5 days to practice, and one of them just, you don't really know what you did. So that's good. But, you know, and it was funny. The only guy that I felt like I could tell he really cared how the game came out, and it's one of the reasons I like him so much, is EJ. EJ was pissed off after the game. He was not super happy that they'd just gotten embarrassed. And he's from Allen, Texas. He's not used to losing at all, much less getting humiliated on national television.
And just, you know, outside of all the guys that we talked about, we've all seen – I think we've all seen the receivers either in Atlanta or, you know, high school. We've all three of us in here went to Trajan's game. Josh has been to his games. Like, to me, Trajan is he's the most versatile out of all three of those guys. Like, Theo and Jadon are going to make huge plays down the field, but I think Trajan could be a guy that is a bigger, more versatile kind of inside guy if he wanted to be.
He reminds me, not so much in his game, but in what you're talking about, Kerry, of Sterling. Because you can line him up outside and he'd be fine. He can run across the middle, he'd be fine. Like, he is one of the, like, Theo and Jadon, like, maybe can work vertically and be outside, and they're a little better than Trajan is. Over the middle and some of that stuff, he can do stuff they just can't do. Like, he is so adept, and he has a great feel for things. Like, you just watch him work. There were a couple of plays with Rattler in that game where he was so close to making a big play. He had the drop in the end zone. I mean, like, I don't think it was on him. It was a tough catch in a really kind of tight window. So, like I said, I think Trajan is – and I feel bad for him because Theo and Jadon had their huge moments, and I think it's kind of made him slip to the background. Don't do that. Trajan Bridges is a really, really good player that's going to – I think can be a CeeDee Lamb type guy before it's all said and done.
And all three will arrive in Norman this weekend.
Yeah. That group of early enrollees is not too shabby.
You think I mean, can you imagine, like, Austin Kendall and Tanner Mordecai out there with those receivers doing 7-on-7s?
Well, it made me think of, do you guys, I think it was Jeff Mead that made the comment a couple years ago when Marquise Brown and Sedarian Lamb showed up, and he's like, man, I'm glad I'm not a freshman right now trying to get in here with these guys. Like, I can't even imagine what that would have felt like. Can you imagine, like, being, like, the group around them that's like, are you kidding me? All three of you? This is ridiculous. Because those aren't even guys, like, there are a lot of guys that are really talented that when they get into a big setting, you can see it gets a little too big for them. That's not those three. Those guys are going to be like, give me the damn ball. Like, I want it, and I want it now.
And, you know, the important thing is going to be how hard they work, not on the on the 7-on-7 stuff. It's going to be in the weight room. I mean, that's where you really make your impressions on veterans. Because, I mean, I remember back to Adrian Peterson and just how in awe everyone was of him as a freshman. But they wouldn't have been that way if he also hadn't have been leading them in all the drills. I mean, I remember them talking about, they'd be doing drills and he was the last man standing, like, on the first day. Like, when they all got back, that's when Jerry Schmidt would just try and kill everyone. And, like, Adrian Peterson was still going when everybody was puking their guts out.
It's unbelievable.
But he's just a freak. But, I mean, that's the kind of impression that you have to make on guys like CeeDee Lamb and Grant Calcaterra. And
should be pointed out, to my knowledge, Schmitty never killed anybody, which makes me think he probably would have never been good enough to be on DJ Durkin's staff.
Noted.
Wow.
Just pointing it out.
By the way,
people
Alabama, that's one thing we never talked
Scott
about.
Cochran?
Alabama, boy, they nixed that DJ Durkin thing really fast when they realized how much blowback they were going to get when he was supposed to go and be helping them prep for OU. They came out. And they was like, no, he's not coming here.
People keep trying to maybe DJ Durkin to Oklahoma. That's never going to happen, people. Never. That dude is toxic right now. If Nick Saban can't purify your bullshit, then no one can. I mean, he took on Sark after Sark was basically a drunk.
Yeah,
and
that's who Kliff needs to go after.
Sarkisian.
Run his offense out in Arizona.
Oh, well, I mean, it worked well in Atlanta.
Sark and Scottsdale. Whew.
No, I hadn't thought of it from that angle. Yeah, that's
all I'm thinking about.
Well, and what amazes me, and I think the Roy Manning guy is really interesting. I think that would be a good hire for Oklahoma. But there's no way you'll convince me that people haven't told themselves he's better than Brian Odom or Zac Spavital simply because he coaches at a school they know.
Correct.
We know UCLA, so he must be better, even though UCLA was terrible last year.
You played UCLA. Did you watch that game this year?
Yeah. And like I said, I don't want that to be like we're shitting on Manning. Like, I think he's a good coach. I do. But like I said, it's not like Zac Spavital coached arguably the best linebacker in the Big 12 last year.
And I thought Tech played well as a linebacker crew. Remember in that game, Dakota Allen didn't even play most of that game when OU played, and they were still pretty decent.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they fought OU a lot harder than a lot of teams that have more respected defenses. And and the way they did it fits in to what Grinch talked about of we're going to be aggressive and we're going to try to create turnovers and we want to attack. And by the way, Eddie, to kind of steal your thunder, how fully erect was the board as they were reading that quote that he sent out about how they want to play defense?
Who?
Grinch, when he sent that thing out where he's like, we're going to be attacking, we're going to be aggressive. And I'm like, the whole board is just literally.
Well, you could have said, as the new guy, he could have said anything. He could have said that he's going to come and take all their parents' money. And the board had been like, oh, yeah, this guy's great.
All I could see was
he's not Mike Stoops. This guy's awesome.
But no, I mean, so like Spavital and the way Tech played would fit into what they do. And like I said, I've posted actually some stuff on the board while this pod's been going on. I continue to hear there's interest there. I think it's going to matter how this Cardinal situation goes, and then we'll kind of see what happens. Obviously, like Kerry talked about already, Odom and Manning. Like I said, we'll see. Linebacker feels like it's really close to being done, but there's still so many variables you can't quite put it together.
And then defensive back, Ruffin McNeil. I mean, all that stuff's still up in the air.
I thought you were saying Ruffin McNeil was going to become the DB's coach. Like, that's a twist. I didn't see that.
That would be a bad idea.
Well, I want to watch Ruffin like everybody talks about me on the board. Like, I want to see him turn his hips. I want to see him flip and go.
You got a sundial?
It might be the last time you see it.
Oh, God.
It was Kerry and Bob that said that.
I didn't say
anything.
Eddie's he's not old enough yet for Eddie to rip on him. He's only 60.
It's true.
Is he? I thought he was a little older than that.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
I tell this to people all the time. He looks older than his age. Or he acts older than his age.
He's a river rat, man.
Outside of that, as we said, the dead period's coming to an end. Coaches are going to be able to get out on the road. You've got 23 signees, not commitments, signees already. Josh, what's the roadmap ahead? How many spots do they have left? And who are the guys that could fill it, and what kind of positions? Are they looking strictly defensive guys here?
Well, it's not strictly defensive guys. And actually, it wouldn't shock me if it's a majority of offensive guys. I think 3 or 4. I think 4 is absolute max. I think it's probably 3 is what we're looking at here in January. I think in a perfect world, they'd like to have David Agwebu. I think they absolutely want one more offensive lineman. They might take a second, and to me, if there's someone else, it's kind of an outlier that maybe Alex Grinch loves a corner that's still out there, or a new position coach has a guy that he thinks is really going to fit what they want to do. It would have to be, I think, someone new coming in and saying, Lincoln, we've got to find a way to get this guy in our class, and really kind of standing on a table for a guy. I guess we should start with Enoch Vamahi, the offensive lineman from Hawaii. He's coming in this weekend. USC clearly leads. Oklahoma's got work to do there. He was really pretty impressive at the All-American game in San Antonio last week. Had a chance to watch him through the game, through a day of practice. Kind of a lighter guy. Doesn't really look like some of the guys OU's recruited through the years. Looks almost, I hate to say it, but almost more like a James Patton type offensive lineman. But
what does that translate to?
Yeah. Well, but the thing was, you saw him and you're like, he looks kind of lean and kind of long, but he was physical. He wasn't getting pushed around like I thought he might. He's definitely a guy that as he gets bigger, he'll be a quality player, I think. And then you've got, go ahead.
Kind of a Derek Farniok. Is that what you're saying?
No. I don't mean that as an insult. Patton guys were always kind of converted tight ends. They were just longer and kind of lean and flat-bellied, as to where Bill's guys are whatever, I ate 3 cheese dogs on the way here, I don't care, and then they just go kick your ass. So that's always been a difference, and it was weird for me when Bill first started offering guys. I was like, you want that dude? He's 330. It was culture shock. But anyway, I also think Oklahoma, in a perfect world, would like to take Danielson Ike, the offensive lineman from Kansas City. He has not taken an official to anywhere. I think he definitely wants to go to Oklahoma. It's just going to be a matter of if that's how the numbers work out. And can Oklahoma – I don't know if Oklahoma is planning to or can take both he and Vamahi. I don't know that that's been decided yet. So
his name's really Danielson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great name.
Yeah, he's
it's Danielson.
I think he's Haitian, Danielson, if I remember right. Something like that.
Parents probably big Karate Kid fans.
Oh, wow. You went there. It took me a second to catch up, but now I'm with you.
And it's not Ike. Ike.
Do you think he'll call, the offensive lineman, he'll call Bill, Miyagi? No. Okay, fine.
I hope so.
This portion of the podcast has been sponsored by Is This Racist?
Children of the 80s. But no, I guess the final piece is David Agwebu. Agwebu didn't play. He was there through the week in the All-American game. Didn't take part in the game. Wasn't there on Saturday. There's a lot of stuff out there. I don't want to get into too much of it. I think Oklahoma is still trying to kind of effort how they look at that, what they think of that, if they're going to be concerned about that, or if it wasn't a big deal. So we'll kind of have to see what happens there. But I think they want to take him. It's just a matter of if they can feel comfortable that this guy is going to come in and do the stuff we need him to do.
If he's going to walk the straight and narrow.
Yeah, because I don't think at this point there's any question that Oklahoma is where he wants to go. I feel very confident in saying that. It's just a matter of.
Can we not beat around the bush on that a little bit? Because that's going to confuse. We know how it works. People are going to be like, "What are they saying?" It was a discipline issue at the All-America game, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. Like I said, I hate it because I haven't really gotten into it on the board because I don't know how I want to address it, and I like when I can talk and kind of say it like I want to say it without everybody coming back and be like, well, what does this mean?
Because people don't ever take what you say on the radio or even what you post out of context. That hasn't happened this morning.
That's never going to happen, Kerry. You just get to say it exactly like you want to, and everybody understands completely.
And that's the other. No. I want to address that too, real quick.
Okay, go for it.
When we're on the pod, we enjoy it because we do get to talk, and you get to hear us how we're talking about things that are delicate. It's just like with the Odom thing. It's just like, look, I don't think it's over. I'm not questioning any reports. I'm not telling anyone that they're wrong. It's not going to shock me if something still develops there with Brian Odom. See, to me, that it doesn't, incite a riot or any panic. It doesn't. I'm not saying anything negative about Football Scoop or Gabe DeArmond at Power Mizzou. I'm just saying I don't think it's over. And you'll just have to trust my reputation on whether you believe that or not. So there.
Ditto.
And no, that's not on the board, which I'm going to get killed for if I don't get it on the board before I post this podcast.
It's on the board.
Is it? Okay. Good.
Ditto, ditto, ditto.
So, yeah, sometimes we have conversations that aren't always on the board, but for the most part, when we have something major to talk about, I mean, this is the minutia of coaching hires and what goes on and little things here and little things there. Just like the Kerry Cooks thing. We're not going to put a big headline that says, sources say Kerry Cooks could be back. We don't know. We're just hearing that it's not an impossibility that he would remain on the staff. None of us think it's a good idea. But it hasn't been ruled out from what I've been told.
In stuff like this, it's so hard because you want to just report facts, but it all moves so fast and it's all so fluid that if I wait for facts, then I end up reporting nothing. Like this is absolutely the case. Well, then it's like there's almost nothing beyond like who, what, where, why, and when.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, just recruiting and official visits and final signing day, it is anticlimactic, but I don't mind it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this month will be about 2020 offers. You're going to see so many, especially defense. That's actually, if I can be the Twitter guy again, that's where Alex Grinch has been this morning, following a lot of 2020 guys on defense and things of that nature.
How would you guys say the 2020 class is right now in comparison to maybe where they were last year?
Do you mean as compared to like the 2019 class last year?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's ahead of where they were, which is crazy to say because that was a historic start for 2019. Every year it's gotten a little bit better, like really since you kind of saw Bob make that change in 2017 where they started doing more and trying to become more, inventive in their recruiting. You've seen it get a little better. This 2020 group, I mean, Darian Green-Warren just went to the Future 50 and in Florida, and from all accounts was very good. Jalen Knighton is outstanding. Drew Sanders was the Denton area MVP for a team that he missed several games for. So, I mean, this group is Jason McClellan won a state championship for an undefeated Aledo team. I mean, you just go down the list, and it's nothing but dudes that are not just like, oh, he's a good prospect or there's some talent there. These are guys making plays for big-time programs and doing good things.
Well, what's crazy, too, is like, everybody's like, well, I wish we had a little bit better running class in this year. But then next year, you've already got Jace McClellan and Knighton, and then you got Zach Evans that's still listing OU as a favorite, and you're like, well, maybe they should get rid of one of these and bring in Zachary Evans.
I had a discussion with a couple of my buddies about this. This slander on Marcus Major's name completely baffles me. It's not his fault that
he got
he never
10
got
touches.
the football.
Yeah.
Like
I think, might we know one of these buddies, Eddie?
Say what?
Might a few of us know one of these buddies?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. There's one buddy of yours I know that's.
It doesn't make sense to me. Why? I mean, I would probably be saying
Oklahoma.
the same thing. Yeah,
and he's a
3-star,
yeah.
and I think Marcus Major is going to be a good football player at Oklahoma.
And
I'll die on that hill.
That's going to be a question for 2020. You're looking at Andrew Rame, Miles Slusher, Javian Hester, Savion Morrison, Dominic Richardson. When you see those names, people here automatically assume they should be and they need to be Sooners. That's just not going to be the case. And sometimes that's going to be really hard for people to accept.
in a lot of years, Savion Morrison and Dom Richardson would already be OU offers. It's just an insane year for running backs in 2020, and Oklahoma's already got 2 of the probably top 10 in the whole country committed. I love Oklahoma kids. I've always taken a lot of pride in trying to make sure those guys get the attention they deserve, and I don't feel any differently about those guys. Savion's a guy I've been talking to for a long time. The whole thing, like I want to help all those guys, but you only have so many running backs you can take, and in any class, if you're taking more than 2, you're either depleted or you're making a poor decision. Like there's no way around that. So maybe a spot opens up, maybe something changes down the road. But right now, you can't fault Oklahoma for not recruiting running backs in the state because they've got guys that are, by pretty much all the other schools that everybody's like, oh, well, they offered before Oklahoma did. Well, those schools all offered Jalen Knighton and Jace McClellan before they offered any of these guys in state.
My nephew, he's in the band for Frisco Reedy, and they played Alito this year. And after, all those parents saw Jace McClellan, it was like they had just seen the second coming of Barry Sanders. And I was like, how it's like, okay, you just don't see great football players like that every day like we do. But I was just kind of like, he's a big damn deal in the state of Texas. Like, people are just drooling over that kid.
And I still go through that here. I see a kid, I'm thinking, oh, he'd be OU good. And then you go to Texas or you go to Under Armour camp or Rivals camp, something of that nature. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Now I get it. Now I get who's the elite of the elite. And sometimes it's not the kid that's in your backyard, even though you're sort of hoping it would be, because it means a lot for the state to have that one of that caliber.
Well, we've talked about this time and time again, Josh. Just me and you have just driving up and doing the spring tours and stuff. That's why it's so important to get out and actually see these guys, because you get an idea of what you see on Huddle or going to a high school game in Oklahoma. But until you go to the camps or until you go to the national settings or to a Texas high school game or anything like that, it's like you don't truly have an idea of where these guys stack up against each other.
It's like when you see like Malik Jefferson in person for the first time, or you see Baron Browning like down at a Rivals camp. You're just like, okay, these kids are just different than everybody else.
Yep. No, and Oklahoma produces some of those guys, but it's just not in the same number. You go, like, I can go in Houston to just about any high school game I want to on any given Friday night, and I'm going to see 1 or 2 Division I caliber athletes. Like, now they may not make it because of grades, or they may not make it, for whatever other reason. They may be a head case, whatever it could be. But there's a couple of guys on that field that I'm like, damn, that dude's a really good football player. That's not the case in Oklahoma. And that's just the way the numbers work out. It's the way it's social demographics. There's a whole bunch of other things to consider. But just generally, you have to understand that it's going to be different. And like I said, I love my Oklahoma guys, but there are times every year when I'll be really excited about a guy, and I've seen him, and hell, it'll be a guy I've seen in person, and I'll take him to a national event, I'll see him at a national event, or I'll get him an invite to a camp in Texas, and he gets down there amongst those guys, and I'm like, oh, he doesn't look as pretty as I thought he did. But at the same time, there are years when there's Gerald McCoy or Dax Hill, and you're like, I don't need to worry about you for a second. You stick out even amongst all these dudes. So, and that's like, if all you see is Oklahoma high school football, you don't understand the things you're not seeing. Guys, it was like when you went to Kansas and saw Marcus Hicks.
I was getting ready to say the same thing. Like, that's even a different level of separation, because it's like, it's so bad. It's almost like Marcus Hicks can't function on the same field because guys are too small. They're not strong. Like, they just play teams. You're just like, it doesn't compute. It doesn't look, he shouldn't be out there. Like, it's not doing him any good to be out there playing in this game.
He would have been
such a mismatch.
He would have been a prime example of somebody that, if the opportunity presented itself, should have gone to like an IMG or something that would have really pushed himself.
Point.
That's why IMG has been created, in my opinion.
Yeah.
For guys like that.
There are cases like that I can actually understand. And I hate IMG. I don't like that whole – not IMG. Like, I just hate the setups.
I hate the idea as well.
Yeah. But at the same time, I can see it in cases like that. Another good one, Marcus Stripling from Mady Creek in Houston. They were terrible.
Really?
Terrible. One of the worst high school football teams I watched the last few years.
Bad?
They've got a special defensive end that could have went to IMG and competed against the best, had been more college ready than he would have been. The guys I don't understand are like when you leave from Allen or you leave from Katy or you like what do you think you're getting there that you're not getting at your home base?
Yeah.
Plus you get to stay with your family and friends and, have a real high school experience rather than basically you're in college early.
I did like the running back from Marcus Hicks High School that's going to Iowa State.
Kid went to he was in one of the All-Star games, wasn't he?
He was
in the San Antonio?
The All-American game.
Yeah.
God, they've got to find a sponsor.
Yeah. Turn their backs on the troops. Kind of interesting. But.
I don't think that's what happened.
Oh my God.
The troops didn't want to pay the money anymore.
That's what
They've got their own.
that's
They've
what
got
they
the
want
bowl
you to
games
believe.
now and all that stuff.
And I should preface this with I'm a Navy guy all day, every day, but I gotta say the uniforms this year, the Army's been holding them back. Those uniforms were pretty.
Those were really good, yeah.
Yeah, those were sweet this year. Those were really nice.
It is. I will say the juxtaposition of the Army sitting in the stands, while over the years, while you've had Deshaun Jackson fumbling, celebrating before he gets into the end zone, and guys throwing footballs in the stands and stuff, and all the stuff that kids do. You're just kind of like, I don't know if these values really go together.
Which is why I like the Under Armour having the throne. Just embrace it. This is what
But
these kids want to do.
You can always tell those guys in the Army loved it. Like the guys that were in the stands, they loved it when they threw the footballs up to them and stuff.
Oh yeah, because for the people that watch it on television, they can't tell. While the game's going on, the announcers, they're doing all kinds of stuff during the breaks and stuff with the Army, and they're doing cheers like the USC Army guys stand up or so they're doing all kinds of stuff to get those guys going, and it's why for a All-Star game, it's actually a pretty cool atmosphere, or it always was,
yeah.
I guess you'd say, yeah.
All right, so coaching search, we're going to be keeping our eyes and ears to the ground on that. Just keep checking Sooner Scoop and the Crimson Corner message boards. Still lots of content to come as well with recruiting coming up. I know I've got some leftover stuff from the bowl game and media day I'm going to be working on. And Bob, basketball, tough one last night as they fall to the number 8 team in the country in Texas Tech. But the good news is they've already played the 2 best teams on the road.
Exactly, and they got TCU at home on Saturday. I know there's a lot of people right now waiting for OU to get a win that matters. They're 0-3 against ranked teams, so I get why people a little skeptical about how this group is really going to be. But, they could have given up last week in Lawrence. They could have laid down last night in Lubbock. They're still fighting, but the offensive execution could be an issue. I don't know how that's going to get solved. I think they're just going to have to grind out a lot of games.
And I would say the one guy that I've probably been the most impressed with so far in the early goings is probably Christian Doolittle.
He's been fantastic. I think he's really started to come on.
If he can stay at that level, because, is it still just a few games where he shows flashes, or can he do this the entire way and then give him a legitimate, second or third option between him and Brady Manick, who's 2 or 3, with Christian James being the top guy? That's not bad. And if you can get McNeese to finally get 100% healthy, adds another layer.
They need to get McNeese healthy. I think, believe it or not, the way that they've played, and even though they've lost in Lawrence and Lubbock, I think it's pretty encouraging the way that they've competed in both of those arenas and both of those, stages, kind of big stages too. But
to have a shot, I think at like a top 5, top 4 seed, they need Manick and Christian James to play at a higher, more consistent level.
Yeah, and I still don't know if OU has a guy that when they need a basket, I still don't know if you can trust Christian James right now.
Yeah, he showed it in the non-con part, but
did it a bunch of shitty basketball teams.
The enemy was the one that hit the big shot last night to draw him
back into a one possession game.
But he and Calixte have kind of, to me, just been up and down.
And you know what? Scoring the basketball is not their forte. I mean, they have an identity, and it's set on the defensive end, and they're really good defensively.
Yeah.
Like, they are very good defensively, but it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing works out. There's a lot of basketball we played. Get back on track against TCU this weekend, and that's another top 25 team. And
Texas losing to Oklahoma State, I thought, not sent a message, but that tells you something about this league, maybe.
Yeah, it's a tough league again. It's one of the best conferences in the country for basketball.
Iowa State beating Kansas, yeah.
Then loses to Baylor.
Yeah, you got to be ready every night, and especially on the road.
Okay, and the one thing that we didn't address is, other than Kyler Murray, NFL declarations, the Bobby Evans thing has been interesting over the last 24 hours or so. I think he's been back and forth and back is, I think, where he might be right now, which is, I think most people thought he's going to declare. He's going to go to the NFL. I was told he didn't get a great draft grade, and I think we talked about this on the last podcast, that he'd met with Bill Bedenbaugh, and he come up with a plan to let him play right tackle and really grow this next year and improve his draft stock. And, hell, look at Lane Johnson. He's a right tackle doing great in the NFL. But now you're kind of hearing the rumors swirl that he's going to go ahead and declare. I did reach out to someone last night. They didn't seem to refute, that a declaration was imminent. So, again, I'm not going to be surprised. I don't think it would be the right move for Bobby Evans. I think coming back, maybe it's a deal where he meets with Lincoln Riley one more time and changes his mind again. I don't know. But obviously Lincoln's pretty busy with recruiting starting up again and trying to find these assistants. But I'm sure he'd take time, to try and win back over Bobby Evans. But I don't know. With I said this in the beginning, I would be surprised if he didn't go just because of what happened to Tay and the fact that, your career could be over at any time, especially as an offensive lineman.
Yeah, I didn't expect that surprise entry like Dominique Alexander, Devontae Lampkin, but if Bobby Evans goes, I would add him to that list because this wasn't the season. He would have had a better chance, in my opinion, of leaving after last year compared to coming off of the season he just had. But if he still sees the money and still sees being a third-day pick, because that's what I think he would be in the 4th to 7th round, if that still makes sense to him, then he's got to go get it.
I mean, he went from being their most consistent lineman a year ago to probably their 5th best this year. And it's probably just the change of positions. He was poised to become the next big left tackle, and it just didn't come together.
I thought he would have the year that Cody Ford had.
Yeah.
And, would be a guy in the first-round conversation. I mean, people are talking about Cody Ford like he might be the second pick offensive lineman off the board. Like, he had that kind of year.
Because I think you can put him anywhere on the line.
Well, and this move kind of adds up with what I mentioned earlier with Oklahoma now starting to throw around the idea of taking 2 more offensive linemen, which where did that number suddenly come from?
Yeah.
It's always been 1 more, and now all of a sudden I'm hearing that that number doubled. So, I mean, like I said, that's not concrete, that's not set, but it would – the timelines kind of match up.
And you think about Cody Ford, too. Like, you look at a team like the Dallas Cowboys. Like, that's a guy that could almost immediately fix their offensive line. Because if if you need a guard, you can put him in. If you need a right tackle, you can put him in.
He's one of those guys that makes you better at 2 positions immediately because wherever you're weak, you plug him in and you'll be fine.
Or if your best backup is at tackle, you can move him into guard and then play Cody Ford at tackle.
Exactly. I mean, you get to pick where you want him to go, and other guys can move around accordingly. So he's, like I said, from about mid-season on, I thought he was as good as any offensive lineman in the game. So he was just dominant.
All right, so a lot going on. Appreciate everybody listening, and we plan to be back on a regular Wednesday schedule with the Unofficial 40. Now the holidays, the bowl games are behind us, recruiting and all that stuff going on. So, just be prepared to be back on the Wednesday schedules, Thursday mornings for you commutes or whatever, and we'll have a Choctaw Casinos and Resorts Unofficial 40 ready for you. So Thanks, everybody. Thanks, guys, for another great podcast. Thanks to Josh. Thanks to Eddie. Thanks to Bob. I am Kerry Murdoch, and we'll see you guys back here next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 Podcast from Soonerscoop.com.
Podcasts from Soonerscoop.com.